believe in what you do. Even if you're wrong, you believe in what you're doing, and then you can change it if you find out that it's not working. And be willing to do that. Be willing to change. Don't try and make something work just because you thought of it.
My guest today is Joe Foster, co-founder of Reebok and torchbearer for a 125-year footwear legacy that began with his grandfather's track spikes in Bolton, England. Joe and his brother Jeff forged Reebok in 1958, and with grit, innovation and global vision, they transformed this from humble beginnings into a brand that was synonymous with sport, culture and breakthrough design. Have a listen.
Yeah, we are. We're all ready to go. Lovely to see you again.
And nice to see you. Yes. So where
Yes,
do we be? Was it Melbourne or Sydney or?
Well, I'm actually in Adelaide. Adelaide is hometown for me. So when we met a few weeks ago, I was over in Melbourne.
Right. And we know Adelaide. We spent a month in Adelaide last year. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some in the wine regions, I'm sure.
Well, Glenelg, but Glenelg is
Yeah.
really is Adelaide, yes. But
Yeah,
Julie had a problem with her eye, and so
yeah.
he had it operated on in Melbourne, and sorry, in Adelaide, and it was great. The Royal Adelaide Hospital, I think it was.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and they looked after her really well.
Oh, how fabulous.
But we couldn't fly for a month, so we had to stay there.
Well, it's not a bad place.
It was a nice place. We really loved it. Yeah. In Glenelg, we were quite near to the sea, so it was good to get down to the shore there.
Well, that is not a bad place to be captured in, so I'm glad you had a nice time. I was reflecting on what were the things that I was going to talk to you about today and some questions, but the first story that popped into my head is that life sends you down some funny paths. Never in my wildest dreams, when I was a 14-year-old girl selling Reebok shoes in my dad's sports store, did I ever think that I'd meet one of the founders behind the brand. My goodness me.
Well, that's like I say, it's a pleasure to meet you, and that's fun. Was your father's store in Adelaide?
Yes, yeah. I can't say it was a great business success story, but in Adelaide, for Dad anyway. But in Adelaide, there was a sports store chain called Smith and Weston, and Dad ended up buying one of the stores as a venture at some point in time. But I do remember there was 3 styles that I remembered. One was the princess, because I was a dancer, so for me that was the closest thing to a ballet shoe. And then the high top was, yes, definitely for either those basketball or those aerobics people. And then the tennis shoe. If you had the tennis shoe, you must have been pretty flash.
Right. I'm with you, yes.
Yeah, there we go. So it's lovely to be able to spend a little bit of time sort of talking to you about business, because really you have your career has spanned decades, and I do love the family history that obviously, being born into the industry in a way. And I've heard a little bit about your story that you shared with us when you took some time away from the family business, and you and Jeffrey went off and then came back and started this together. But I'm really kind of interested, when you did start it, did you have a significant plan in mind, or were you just going to go off and make a different style of shoe than you were doing with the family business?
Well, the family business, my grandfather started that 1895. My father and uncle took it over in 1933, but my father and uncle, they just fought. They feuded. They didn't get on with each other.
Okay.
And my grandfather built a tremendous business and quite global. So I think Jack Lovelock in New Zealand, all over the Commonwealth in particular. Yeah, to sell his product. But of course, when the two owners are 50-50 each and they don't talk to each other, the one thing that fails is the business. So by the time myself came into the business, the J.W. Foster business was failing. We'd done national service, as you say, we'd been away for 2 years. We came back, we could see the business was failing. We'd learned a lot of discipline being in the armed forces. So we knew that we could step out, take our own chance, and we thought the problem that we were facing is that the business would fail, and we wouldn't have any livelihood. What could we do? So the only thing that we said, well, the best thing we can do is to leave and start our own company. So that was the inspiration for
behind
starting.
it.
Yes. And we
And
started.
you and your brother had different sort of roles in the business, didn't you? You know, you much more from a marketing and sales perspective, and Jeff really liked the operational side of it.
Yeah, I was more outgoing. I was more willing to ask questions, do things, and probably more entrepreneurial than my brother. He loved the factory. He just loved the factory, and so Jeff looked after the factory and developed the factory and developed the product, whereas I did all the marketing, the selling. I did a lot of designing as well. So, but Jeff would develop that into a product. So yeah, we had separate areas to work in, and I guess we'd seen my father and uncle and the way that they didn't get on together, and we knew if we were going to really run a business and build a business, we had to work together, which we did do. Working together, it was good. I was the one who could make the mistakes because I was doing the marketing, the selling, the whatever, where do you step? And yet we never fell out. We never had a bad word. And I'm sure that Jeff must have thought on numerous occasions, why is he doing that? Why is he what is he doing?
And can you recall one of, what you might categorize as one of those big mistakes and maybe what you learned from it?
Well, probably one of the biggest mistakes was appointing a distributor who was a friend.
Yeah.
He was the sales director of a company, and I'd known him for many years. We were a good friend. They only made football boots, soccer boots. That's all they did. Boots.
Right.
And we made an assortment of running and training shoes, and he said, "Why don't we be your distributor? Because that would go well." Because they sold football boots during the winter season, and yet sneakers and stuff was selling during the summer. So it seemed like a very good idea. And so, yes, they became our distributor. And it's good because all of a sudden your cash flow is brilliant. Whatever you produce was sold every week. So that was great. And and that was about 90% of our production because we did a few small things for other people. But my friend, I wouldn't say he actually left the company. He decided to leave the company when the owner of the company retired and put his son-in-law in charge of the company. And his son-in-law and my friend just did not hit it off at all. So my friend left with the whole sales team and went to set up to another place, to barter, set up barter. Within 12 months, my distributor was out of business.
Right.
Because he just didn't know what to do. His father-in-law who owned and ran the business, and it was called, for whatever reason, and decided to retire, and nothing worked. So that nearly put us out of business because they were 90% of our production. So that turned out to be a bad idea, but it seemed good in the beginning. It seemed right.
Yeah. Well, it's, it's the process, I think, sometimes of recovering from some of those mistakes more than anything else, because as much as people will talk to you about your so-called, overnight 5-year success story, they forget the decades that came before. And, if my maths is right, it was about 31 years really that, it took from really the starting of the business to the selling out at that, $900 million figure that everybody really talks about now. Do you remember some of those things that you really had to put in place to ride the wave, if you like? And I think about it contextually to today. I mean, you talk a lot about influencers, and you talked a lot about getting in the right industry magazines and getting your 5-star rating as key benchmarks out there in industry. But you must have also had some pretty decent structures and systems in place to be able to ride that wave.
Well, I think it's being able to change when change demands, to be able to take new things in. For instance, when we lost our initial distributor and that 90%, we had to think of something. So what we did is we went to every school within a 50-mile radius, and we worked with the PE teacher or whatever, the sports teachers, and we were selling that product because we had to recover a lot of product from the distributor. The distributor was going down. We brought a lot back, and so our cash flow would be absolutely. If the bank manager knew, we'd be dead because the cash flow was going very bad.
Yeah,
But
right.
we started selling direct to all the schools in the area that we're with that 50 miles area, and within 3 months we'd sold all the product, and we'd sold it for a better price than we got from the distributor. So
Okay.
it's just how you change your thinking to what you go to. When we moved into America and suddenly we got that demand, our factory
Mm.
was small, so that's when we had to go to the Far East.
Okay.
Unfortunately, my brother died just as we got into America. He got cancer and he died. So a lot of it was just left to me. In a way, to an advantage is that I didn't need to discuss anything. I had to make decisions. It wasn't a matter of saying, "Oh, Jeff, what do you think of this idea? What do you think of that idea?" Or I just had to make. So in many ways, I did what I did, and I know a lot. Even some of those moves were probably wrong, but I could change it pretty quickly. I didn't need to do anything else. I could change it. And Jeff would have actually been in charge of production in the Far East, but of course we had to get somebody else, so we appointed somebody else, and it took 3 people to take on what Jeff was doing. It took 3 people.
Wow.
It took a designer, developer, and it took someone to run his side of the office. They had the buying and whatever. So it took me 3 people to do that. But you know, these things happen in life. They happen in a business. So it's being able to think probably outside the box instead of thinking how bad things are. It's right. Yeah, because we had learned, we changed our name to Reebok. We changed our silhouette from 2 stripes and a T-bar to the Vector. And what we learned is that these problems are not really problems, they're opportunities. These are opportunities to do something. We changed for a better name. We changed for a better silhouette, and everything comes along. You've got to think, how can I maximize this? How can we make this work? And I know Jeff would have wanted us to be successful. Unfortunately, he didn't live through the time when we did become successful, and we did become a global company. But I mean, it was a very important time while Jeff was there, developing the brand and having the brand grow to become #1 in the UK. You know, that was a big achievement, #1 in running in the UK. So, but I mean, a lot of these things are intuitive. A lot of these things are okay. If you're an optimist and if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be an optimist. I think if you mean you have to look at
Exactly.
how can we develop this? What can we move into? And I think that keeps your mind off the some of the problem times. But I say problems we consider opportunities.
Well, they exist every day in business anyway, don't they? You know, it's those people that don't seem to have them. They might be the employee. Perhaps they get to go home and, you know, and switch off. But where does the sort of internal confidence or resilience come from? Is that part of you and your personality, or is that a skill that you've developed over time?
I think you have to be born with it partially. Definitely, you have to have something in there, and I think it's just your confidence to believe in yourself, believe in what you do. Even if you're wrong, you believe in what you're doing, and then you can change it if you find out that it's not working. And be willing to do that. Be willing to change. Don't try and make something work just because you thought of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. That's not the way. You're going to think if it's not working. I don't say look for the easy things in life, but you look at a way that other people acknowledge, other people like it, and I think that going into aerobics and white space, we look for white space. White space was we were a small company, and white space.
Explain what white space is.
White space was when we left the parent company, and we had to think, what can we do? Could we go into football, soccer. Well, we couldn't because by that time Adidas had come into the UK and they owned the soccer market. So we had to
Yeah.
look for other things like, okay, fell running, north of England, cross country running. Again, these were north of England sports. Rugby league was a north of England sport, and we could move into these areas, which we call white space, because it was either too small or unknown to the bigger
Yeah.
companies.
So those
And
those sort of newer areas that they weren't prepared to go into, or that, you know, it's an opportunity for you to be able to make your name there.
that's right. And
Yeah.
when we got to America, aerobics was the biggest piece of white space that we found. There was a complete blank canvas, and that took us from 9 million to 900 million. Just looking for that white space and being willing to move. We were willing to pivot from being a small running company to being a woman's fitness company. And
I love that. I love that. And I could probably spend hours talking to you. I've got so many more questions, but I've just got my little wind up there. But I do this little thing at the end of the podcast, and it's my quick fire 5. So whatever comes into your mind, what would be the top 2 skills that you think somebody as an entrepreneur today needs to have?
listen, and act.
Okay.
Don't hesitate.
If you could master one life or business skill, what would it be?
Oh, well, playing the piano. I'd love to play the piano, and I can't.
Right. Well, everybody can. It's like everyone can sing. Next time I'm going to take you up on playing me a song. What would you class as a superpower of yours?
A superpower. Oh.
Superpower.
I think listening, probably listening.
And then the kryptonite. What's your reverse?
What's my best?
What's your reverse? What would be your kryptonite? What would you? What
Right.
gets you? Is it
what gets me? Egos.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And the final one would be, if you had your time again, would you do it all again?
Probably. Because I'd
Cool.
leave that door open.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it has been an absolute joy chatting to you today, Mr. Joe Foster. What a legend of the sporting industry that you are, and it's been a pleasure. And I thank JT for the opportunity to connect us up again. And I hope one day that we meet again. But thank you too for, I think, offering your time and energy to us entrepreneurs out there to keep energizing us and keep sharing that wisdom, because you've done many things, and I'm sure there's been many hard days as much as there has been good. So once again, thanks for your time today.
It's been a pleasure, myself, and good luck with whatever you're doing in life, and enjoy it, because that's the main thing.
Yeah, well, I've got an event management business, and we've certainly had our ups and downs in the last few years, but I've taken a few things out of tonight. So the next step is going to be a glass of wine and writing myself some notes as to a few things that I can implement in my business.
It sounds like a good idea to me. That
Exactly. Well, it's morning for you though, so you can have a cup of tea.
I'm due to have a coffee. I'm not a tea person.
Oh, there we go. An Englishman that's not a tea person.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not a tea person.
All right, we'll go and enjoy your morning. I look forward to seeing you again.
It's been a pleasure, Melissa. And yes, we'll be down in Australia, I'm sure, later this year, early next year, I think. Yes.
I can't believe the energy. It just keeps going and going.
Well, nobody tells me to stop, so I just keep going.
Fair point too. All right, we'll see you again.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I hope you got something out of today's episode. It's about being able to hear from people who have been there and done that. If you could do me just a favour and like the episode, it just helps the algorithm. I would really appreciate it, and I look forward to bringing you another conversation for the business of being seen.